What's up, Willowbrook? Today we are in 1 Kings 19, verses 1 through 18. Now, in chapter 18 of 1 Kings, we read that Elijah calls down fire from heaven. He kills prophets of Baal. He prays that God would end a drought that's been going on for years, and God does. And now at the beginning of chapter 19, Elijah is afraid of the wife of the king. He's afraid of Jezebel because she threatens his life after she found out what he did to the prophets of Baal. So we read that Elijah flees. He tries to get away. And as he's running away, he ends up meeting an angel of the Lord. And then he ends up at Mount Horeb, which is also Mount Sinai, where God essentially speaks to him and renews him and sets him back on the path that God has for his life. Now, there's a couple things that stand out to me in our chapter, in our passage today. The first is that God pursues his people. So Elijah is fleeing from Jezebel. He's afraid. You could argue that he's outside of God's will because he's looking at this situation. He's looking at this woman and he's choosing fear over faith. But we read that God doesn't just abandon Elijah. Instead, God sends an angel to feed him and give him something to drink 2 times, and then meets with him in a cave on Mount Horeb. This reminds me of Psalm 23, where it says, "Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life." Goodness and mercy follows us because God pursues his people. The second thing that stands out to me is how God speaks to Elijah. Now this scene, starting in verse 11, is very similar to the experience that Moses had with God on the same mountain in Exodus 33. But in verse 11 today, it says this: "The Lord said, 'Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by.' Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper." You may be like me, and I know I want to hear God's voice in the miraculous. I want to hear it in the whirlwind. I want to hear it in the earthquake, in the fire. But here we see that God chooses to speak sometimes in a still small voice, in a whisper. Now, can God still speak in miracles and in signs and wonders? Absolutely. But sometimes he speaks to us quietly, and he's inviting us to make sure that we're listening and we're paying attention. I think the point is that it's easy for us to miss this still small voice when we're looking to hear God's voice only in signs and wonders. You know, God's given us scripture. He's given us the Bible where we can read and hear his voice every single day. And I think the call to us as Christians is to slow down, to spend time with God daily so that we can hear him speak to us, whether it's in signs and wonders or it's in a whisper. And when we hear the voice of God, just like Elijah, it renews us and it gives us the strength that we need to continue on the path that God has for our lives. God bless you.